do it on here. Okay, hello again from the start. So we're on day 4, which is fantastic. I'm really excited to, this is the bit where we start seeing what you've actually done, which is the bit that I'm always excited about, right? So we're day 4. Hopefully you can see my screen and it's all clear. You can hear me as well. That's the main thing. Okay. And as long as you're able to follow through. So, okay, so what we're going to be doing today is we're continuing from what we've been talking about. So welcome to day 4. The overview for today is, let me make it a little bit bigger so it's clear. So we're going to be refining the style of your assistant, and I'll go through I'll go through an example today, so that might help when we do this. And I'll show you also where we create our assistant. So I know some of you you weren't here yesterday, so we'll go back and do a little recap as well. So we want to personalize the AI assistant's output responses. That's going to be key. And we're customizing our AI responses, and we're making sure that the AI aligns with our style. So what we've talked about this week is making sure that when you're in that environment, the GPT environment, which is the 4, which is the paid version, it means that we're creating assistants in that environment. Now there are kind of other ways of doing this. So if we were to go to the OpenAI and create what we call these agents, that's something I do in my program. But that here, what we're doing is we're kind of in this environment, which we'll see again in a moment. And that's where we're creating our assistants at the moment. Now, so this is kind of what we're planning to do here. But before I move on and go through this in a little bit more detail, let me just ask the others who perhaps were here. Erica was here, Paul, Jamie. Hi, Paul. So how have you found the process of building your AI assistants so far? So this will be a great starting point, so that I just want to see where people are with that. So let me reach out to Jamie to begin with. Jamie, where are you with in terms of the process thus so far?
Well, I've gone and I've added information to my knowledge base, and I've played around with it to ask ask it to do certain things, and to check whether it's doing things correctly. I've asked it to cite references from my knowledge base so I can go back and kind of double check things.
That's fantastic. So you've actually uploaded files, and now you're checking to see whether it's actually responding to the knowledge base that you've added to that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Fantastic.
still don't know if my prompts are the best prompts, but I'm working it to see what happens. So I'm practicing with it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do a little bit of that as well to check to see whether the actual, whether the assistant's doing the thing that it's kind of we're wanting to do, right? So, okay, fantastic. So you've been on that testing phase already. How about the others? Paul, Erica, maybe you can.
Hi, Bally.
Erica, how are you doing today? You okay?
Good. So I started working on, the different assistants. So I created one for the book, like I call it author, one for copywriter, and one for blog writer. But then when I was doing the biz one, which was my first one, right, where I'm uploading my my clients, my idea client and my business, that's the one I'm starting with. I had a little bit of trouble with the instructions. Like I want to make sure that I'm giving it the right instructions. And I wanted to see if there's like a way to get it like very accurate. Because, like I don't know the instructions to give it, for instance, to say for like blogging or copywriting, like how could I make sure that the instructions are aligning with what I want the results to be?
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So what we're actually, interestingly enough, that's what we're going to be looking at a little bit more today. So to really refine that process And I hope so what I've been doing kind of behind the scenes is working on doing this. So hopefully this will be one that will really help you today.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Fantastic. So let's see how Paul is getting on. Paul, you can move, or you can pop it in the chat. It would be great to hear, because it also gives others to kind of something to think about as they start building their own. Let's have a look if you come across any questions or any things that you're saying actually not kind of, you know, maybe you're not even the stage of doing this, because I know Paul was wanting to get GPT-4, so you may still be there. Hopefully you're able to get in. Okay, so you can, if you're having any challenges with that, yeah, so the thing to do with these challenges is to take action, and that's the key thing, right? So more we do that, we kind of have an end product thing that we're like, okay, I spent time looking through this and now I have something that's tangible. And so that's why I find these kind of doing this is the exciting bit, because everyone gets something from it, right? So this is kind of the place, and I will go into the GPT environment too, right? So as we know, you may have heard the term transformer. And so we know it as ChatGPT, it's generative. We've talked about generative AI. We've been kind of talking about that, what that means. And this is kind of pre-trained transformer, right? So it's a GPT, you're training it, pre-training it. So when we start creating our own assistants, what we're actually doing is inputting some of that knowledge, what we're wanting it to do, right? So in terms of the outputs. So this is the place, this is what it looks like once you go into the paid version and you go into where it says my GPTs, then you go into a new GPT, right? So that's basically the space that you want to be in. And then, of course, when you, and what we're talking about at the moment, so for Lisa and Crest, what we're discussing here is this bit here on the left-hand side, where we're giving our assistant a name, right? We're giving it a description, right? Saying what it is, and then we're giving it really clear instructions, right? So that's the bit that we're wanting to get right, because if we get that bit wrong, then the assistant's not going to know, the model's not going to know what you want it to do, right? So it's like having an intern coming back and saying, I don't understand what you want me to do. And we want to avoid it kind of just filling the gaps. So we want to train it as much as we possibly can. So yesterday we talked about kind of adding our knowledge into this environment. So this is the space, I call it the GPT environment, because obviously there are other tools out there. And so this stays for us in this space. And the ones I've shown you, apart from one, all my assistants are private and they're only for me to use when I want to evoke them in my chat. So that's what the magic of this is. So you can have these kind of roles that you create. So my kind of wish for everybody after this is that you've kind of got assistants. It's like you call on them when you want to write copy. So this is kind of the generative thing that we're talking about here. And of course, there are other tools that generate, like Midjourney, there'll be kind of more for images, but we're looking at text here with ChatGPT and other LLMs, which are the large language models, they're called, and like Cloud or Claude, some people say, right? So anyway, so let's have a look at this example. So hopefully, Erica, this will help you, and it will help everybody, I feel, right? So I'm going to go through what those instructions will look like when you start refining and building your own AI, so that by tomorrow everybody will have, that's kind of my wish, everybody has a assistant that they can call on, right? So they've built it, they'll have tested it, and we can kind of do a run through to see how that's going. Okay, so example, we're going to do this because having had that conversation yesterday, Erica, I was thinking, so which one should we have a look at? And you talked about blog writing. So what we would do is, here's a brief overview what it might look like. So I'm going to go through some of the steps, then I'll give you some examples of text you may add to your instructions. So we're kind of refining it when we add the copy in, okay? So what we might want it to do will support, so we want help in high quality blog content for an interior design business, right? So Erica's business is interior design. The steps can cover various aspects of content creation management, including, right, so these are the things we might be wanting to include. Defining, so remember yesterday we talked about what the purpose is. So what is the purpose of the blog? So whatever your assistance, you know, the intention is of that assistant, what is it that you want it to do? We talked a little bit about target audience, okay? And also you want to be determining like the style, the tone, and topics. You want to think carefully about how often, like, do you want this blog to go out every month, every fortnight? And you may have a structure. Now, right, the purpose of a blog, right? So you're implementing these SEO strategies, search optimization. And so that can be embedded in these instructions. You want to integrate the knowledge base into this model, the assistant. You want to train the model that it understands so that your system, like you don't have to keep going back to those first principles. It kind of understands that. That's the whole purpose of having an assistant. So there's consistency, there's accuracy in that. You've got this, you've updated the knowledge base. Erica, you were mentioning something like, so what happens, like, do I have to update it? Well, yes, yeah. If you change anything in the knowledge base, like files, then you may want to update that as well. So like things from your website, you can, like we said yesterday, you just go onto your website. For any website content you've got, you can just kind of, you know, when you click on print, and it says like save it as a PDF, what that will then do is give you the copy, which then you can upload. I'll kind of show you what you can do with that. But you know, instead of like saying I've got a website, do I just simply put the link in there? You can do that as well. There's something called you know, like APIs, you know, you can put links in that, but that gets a little bit more complex. In terms of the copy, you can simply take the copy from your own website. You've got that you can call on. If that's, you know, that was an example of a website, but an example of a blog might be the case here. You might have like ethical bias checks. This is key, right? Because with ChatGPT, it doesn't know that. So you have to train it. So, and there's this loop. So I'm going to go through what I would do, say in this instance. So the purpose is to create a system that generates blogs, right? So that reflects the voice of Erica in the interior unique perspective. Showcase, you've got the projects, you want to attract clients, and we want to maintain the designer's voice, expertise in the AI generated content, as well as ensuring the content is ethical, unbiased, and up to date. So the instructions for this, you may have a conversation starter. I'll go into the GPT in a moment and show you where that is. And so it's going to obviously benefit the business. That's what you want. So let's go into what it's going to do. This is how it would look like, right? So in the scenario here, in case for Erica, for example, so for her content, her assistant, I gave it this name, Erica, you know, you might give it something else when you come to doing yours, and like you said, you've started building it. So I've given it this scenario and I've said, imagine you're an interior designer and architect. And I don't even know if that's the right term here. You're developing a GPT model to generate content for your blog. The goal is to produce insightful posts that showcase your design philosophy, project experiences, industry trends, drawings from your extensive portfolio, design principles. Step one, I've gone through these steps. What's the purpose of my blog, right? So each of those will be something that you can say, you know, I want to refine this so it kind of understands. So the blog's goal is to inspire. So stop me if you're not. Jamie, did you have a question? By the way.
Sorry, I was just sneezing.
Okay, bless you. Okay, so yeah, so this is just an example of what I might do, and Erica might say, actually, when I'm writing this, I'm going to refine it even more. And you can actually get ChatGPT, as we saw yesterday, Erica, that you can get it to refine it, you know, like you can refine it further, right? That's really kind of understands you and your style. But
yeah, is that the part where you hit here create? It's
yeah,
in the create, right? Because when I created the first assistant, it showed me that I could go into OpenAI and like search it on itself, but I skipped it. I went into the configure area, which is to the right, right?
okay, so you're talking
Yeah.
about here then. You went into this bit here where you go into your, you know, let me just get the chat GPT.
And I also, what I noticed for me when I was starting to set them up, I was like, oh, I can't find them. And I kept looking for them. And I realized it's because I had the unpaid version. So it's really interesting because I was like, where are they? Like I kept looking for the place where I can add the assistants. But you're right, like you have to have the paid version for
yeah.
that.
So you have to kind of be in this space where you've got this, you've got to have 4 to be able to create your own.
Yeah, and I noticed that said only ChatGTP, and but then eventually I was able to find it. But yes, because I was like, you went in here, and I couldn't find it. But it's interesting, you know, like as you practice and you do it, you understand what you're describing.
Yeah, it is. It takes time, doesn't it? And so we want to, and we can kind of shortcut that process and make it a little bit easier as well to kind of say, you know what, where do I need to go? Like, where's this kind of space? You know what she's talking about? Because you have, like, if you notice, like, I'm just gonna go into this space here. Like, if I want to evoke like one of my assistants, it should show up, and it's not. I think it's just slow down on my side, but you normally just click at, and then it will appear. Let me just see. Let me just refresh the page. Let's see what it does. It probably just needs refreshing. So sometimes if it freezes, then it might be worth kind of checking to see what's going on. Okay. So I don't always have to shouldn't have to kind of go into this because that's my assistant. But ideally, what I want to be able to do, it's not showing up for me for some reason, but okay. So if I went into, this is one of the assistants. And so that's what I'm actually having I'm using this assistant. And so this is like having my own, like, you know, frequently asked questions, and it will answer questions. And I've tested this and it sort of does the thing. And I've got like all these other examples too. But the reason, just to kind of recap, why we're going to be doing this is because each time we want to call an assistant, say we get our one done for this challenge, we want to be able to call on the F&Qs, for example. You might want to call in on your copyright assistant. You might want to go into your Bally Biz, like this one here. So how would I know what information is in here? So this is kind of the bit where I go edit my GPT, right? So this is the thing where, this is what you were saying, Erica, right? So the information I was just covering there is the bit you putting in the instructions here. So
Exactly. And then if you see there on the left, you have create.
Yeah.
You know, like you have the configure and the create. And I was a little lost there too, because I was like, oh, how could I get to this page? I wasn't quite sure because when I created the first one, it opened with the create.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So it was really interesting, but I was able to play with it and definitely helped me like to figure it out.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. So you've got to go into the create, and then as you go into, so familiarize yourself there in that space, because this is the environment, the GPT environment we're in. And so once we go in and we're looking at saving this, I've given it, this is kind of like my, like a BizBot, I called it AI. And you can give it better kind of descriptions. This was something I did quite a long time ago. you are Bally. So, you know what I mean? I'm like, this is you, right? You are Bally now. I'm actually telling it who you are. You're my helpful AI assistant and writer, by the way. You use only the information in your local knowledge base, i.e. the files that have been uploaded to you. That means these files. And so to answer user questions. So the user questions is the person that goes to the chat. So although I'm going to be the user, we could be using this for a team of people, right? So we want to be thinking kind of like, okay, so if my team of like people were to say my colleagues were using this, they would know that's where they go. So in the long run, you know, you could say the user being whoever that user is. So as soon as you go into the chat, you're the user, obviously. So mostly it will be us for now, but later on, you may have someone else you're sharing that with. And it says, when responding, write in the style of the Bally Biz brand voice, right? I could even hone this in a little bit more. There's more work for sure that I could be doing based on what I've been doing more recently that I can add in terms of the instructions so it really understands me, right? And so what I've then uploaded, and you can add like something like 20 files, and these are really long files, into my knowledge base so that it picks up. So there's an upload files, you upload those there, you save it. Once it's saved, it becomes your assistant, basically, that you then evoke you then become the user of this, like this assistant, basically, right? And so this is the thing that we want to be able to then save. So you can share this link, as you'll see that I've made this private, right, when I've saved it, or just for myself. And you want to, before you start using it, you want to test run it and maybe like just double check it has been saved in this environment here. So the steps in terms of how we do that is you go into where it says, you know, so we just go back into the space here, and you look at sort of like we haven't got it here. And sometimes, by the way, if you're you can share your GPT. So that's what we'll be doing, say, tomorrow. So if you've done your assistant, right, you could share it and it could just be used for this training here. And so every time you want to go in, you've got like, you have all these other, right, other GPTs, right, if you want to go into this space. Now, we could easily get lost in theirs if you're not careful, right? So what we want to be doing really is like have something that we can call on. And so it's, you know, it helps us, it saves time for us. We're not always going back to the beginning of like every time we're creating these threads here. Like say, when I first went into this, I had like so many different chats here, like these conversations. And now what I do is I just go to these assistants here, and I just created them there. So the bit that we were looking at here is, so I go straight into where it says create on the right-hand side of the screen, okay? And then it gives me this page here, okay? And then what I would do is I would input the information in here, give it the name, description, clear instructions, actually gives you some prompts as well, kind of says what it wants you to do, write a short description, what this is, and how you want it to behave. And the other thing is you may add what you want it to avoid doing as well. So you know, that's what I found to be helpful too, right? So and you might say you want it to avoid all this, but that helps then it to narrow and hone in very specifically. And that basically GPT, for that reason, it really kind of goes into that kind of specific knowledge or information that you then want it to retrieve, right? So, and then you've got upload the files, the knowledge base here. Now I would click on web browsing capability, Dali. I would just take those off, and here, I won't be doing this here on this challenge, but you can connect these, create new actions, and you can connect them to other kind of other sort of like tools, and they're kind of like the way you see website connections with APIs, that type of thing. So they kind of take another level really. But for us, for the purpose of this conversation really, and for the challenge is to create your space, you know, create this environment, the assistant. Let me just see if you've got any questions before I go on and continue talking about, was that clear before I talk about the instructions, say Erica would add in those instruction bits?
Bally, can I ask you something? What did we turn off the web browsing and the DALL-E? Because I kept them on, you know, at the bottom of the settings. Like what would you turn them off?
Unless you need to call on them, I would just turn them on, because if I'm having a conversation, I may call. You could have them on if you wanted, because sometimes what I found is that when say if I'm creating social media posts and content, and I want to create an image, and then what happens is that I almost need to go back into the general GPT area. So you can test it. I've left it out. And so when I was trained, we were just shown to leave it because I didn't want it to interfere. There's other stuff that it might bring up, because for you, perhaps, Erica, because you're doing more visuals, that might be more relevant. But I can look into this for sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking more like the browsing, right? Like when we are doing the research, like I want to go out there and see everything is out there, you know? So I wonder if that will help us with the searching for information if we keep the web browsing on, you know? But yeah, just food for thought.
It's a really good point, because it does that anyway. Interestingly enough, because it will still do bits of that, because it's a language model. So it will try, and what it does is, you know, when you go onto Google, it's a search engine, it will search for something, right? With this, it will make meaning based on these kind of algorithms, and then it makes sense of those words. And when we talked about units, like tokens, they're the units, words. And so it kind of scrapes and makes sense of what, if you can't find it, it will do that anyway. So that's why you have to test it, if that makes sense.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. So so let me just see if anyone else has got a question. I think I've created it, just testing it. Okay, fantastic, Paul. I missed that earlier, so that's great. I'm really pleased you've done that. Okay, so it's a case of actually giving it a test. So after you've gone through that process, so let's go back to what we were talking about with regards to, let me just double check I've got the right version up, because I was looking at, so the purpose here. So as you're doing this, and again, it means when you've done it once, you may want to refine it a little bit. So the goal is to inspire readers with innovative design ideas that showcase completed projects, share professional insights into design, architecture. So who's your audience, right? So Erica, I'm not going to know that. You're going to know your audience, and you're going to say they're homeowners, they're design enthusiasts, they're potential clients interested in high-end contemporary interior design.
Could I enter them to be pull out my avatar like what I did in the other one? Could I combine them or no?
You could do. You could do that if you wanted to add the avatar description. But you could certainly do that. You could even go further into a little bit more into kind of the audience, like who would be really reading this content. You could dive even further, you know, are they someone new, kind of like in New York? Are they someone, you know, like all this, it's high end, right? So yeah, you can add them in. You can even copy that and paste it in there and see in the instructions, you know, like in that bit.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. So just they're into, and you might say maybe then they're design enthusiasts because you do that. You actually go and help them, right? So, but they are interested. They want to have like really high-end design. Somebody's got a question, please. Yeah, just unmute and ask. So the tone, step 2 was like really honing in on the star, the tone, the topics. So I just kind of did this, Erica. This is, you're going to know your audience, and you're going to know the style. You're going to know the topics that readers are, like wanting to kind of go into, right? It's going to be it's going to be elegant. It's going to be professional. It's going to be inspiring, right? I'm just going to see what the question is here. Okay, fantastic, thanks. And visual descriptive. This is the bit that's really helpful. If you can be as vivid and sort of like get as much in that, because in your ideal, when you've got your profile, you may not have gone into these real kind of imagery descriptions as much. So this is a really great place to do that. And you can get ChatGPT to help you with that, really refining some of the terms that you can kind of hone in on. So topics could be renovation, design trends, case studies, completed projects, interior styling guides. Any of those will help. And so then you've got your strategy, right? So how often do you want to publish your blog, right? So I've just put this indicative kind of every month. You might say I do it more often than that. So, and then structure, I want it to have like a project overview, design process, insights. This is the key, the bit that I find really like the thing that we can really hone in on. And like photos, illustrations, and big takeaways. And so you might find these tips are the things that really people love going to from your, that you've heard about. You found that those are the blogs that people kind of like look at. So remember, why do we write blogs? Because we want it to we want to get our, message out. And this is the bit that you're going to find, Erica, that in fact, Dan will, I'm sure you have that conversation with him about kind of getting these strategies with the SEO, focus on the luxury interior design. They then pick up. So blogs tend to be the thing that when people are searching for high-end interior design, they find you, right? And so we're looking at New York interior design. Erica's the person to go to. So why are we doing that? We write blogs because we want that awareness, and then of course inspire people as well, right, to the design services that you offer. And then how do we integrate the knowledge base? So this is the bit where you're going to have so much that you have, right? So in terms of your project portfolio, your sketches, your mood boards, client testimonials, your research, the you were saying about research, this can be added in there as well. So the thing to do is make sure your assistant has access to these resources. And the way you do that is by uploading those documents, to the database. And so it understands your philosophy, your project detail. And basically what you're doing is you're training your assistant. You're fine-tuning it with using content from your design portfolio, your industry research, and emphasizing the unique approach, the design approach, the style. And then you've got obviously prompts that guide the model. So you're training it based on those principles, and it understands. So you can say, describe the design process behind a modern minimalist living room using sustainable materials. So, okay, so ensure it's consistent, and it creates guides to ensure that content is accurately represents your design philosophy, right? So you want the aesthetic tone of your brand. You want to check it, right, to see it's doing this. And review each generated post to confirm that it reflects your portfolio and key design element of your work. Plan and update the knowledge base. So this is the thing to do in your new projects and any emerging, and this, you're going to be ahead of the game here, right? Because you're going to see the new sort of techniques, the architectural techniques coming about that are emerging, and so version control, the most recent project's design approaches reflect your assistant's content. So you've got the most up-to-date, kind of info in there as well. So you've got the ethical bias checks. Remember, GPT won't do that. It kind of like doesn't know, because it's like it would just make stuff up unless you train it. And so the ethical bit is the bit I'm really excited about, because it's a bit where people kind of like not really taken seriously, but the area that's going to get even more, sort of a sensitive area, really, I feel. And so does it represent your projects without violating any confidentiality as well? And so you've got that kind of feedback loop as well. So readers, industry peers, like future projects, and so you're refining your GPT. So before you do that, okay, as soon as you've done that, I just want to see if you've got any questions. How do we then check it? And this is what Paul's doing now. I know this is what Jamie's doing. But before I carry on and say, how do we check to see whether what we've created actually does the thing it says on the tin, the thing that you've created? Have you, before I carry on, any questions? There's a lot of kind of like info that I've given.
No question, just an observation. I have to go back and add a lot more stuff to my thing after all that information. So I'm still a ways away.
Yeah, and we're going to refine it. We can add to it, can't we? And we can kind of start with it, and then we can add to this later on, because the very first one I saw, you saw that there's bits missing, right? I can still add to that. So yeah, like and it's going to be one of those processes as well. So Lisa, what was you had a question? Are you going to have to unmute? Let me see if I can unmute you. I can unmute you. Oh yeah, I've asked you to unmute. Okay, let me see.
There you go. Yay. Right. I still can't get my head around AI in the sense that you said that we're trying to sell ourselves, create content to get more clients. So why are we allowing AI to write these posts for us?
Yeah, it's not that we're getting it to write it for it, we're training it to write for us.
In our style.
In our style.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you always have to double check, because I've been using it to create my own content. It doesn't know what I know. So it just kind of gives you like a really good structure of how you can present it in a way that people can understand it easily. And then you put your own things. That is what we always have to check, like otherwise I will sound very generic and very like any other designer, right? There's a part of us that makes us unique. And I think that is the challenge with people believing that it's done for you, but it's actually not. I've been in the process of it, and it's far away from knowing who I am. A lot of times we don't even know who we are or how we are different, so sorry, I'll just like put it out there.
Fine.
Yeah, it's a really good point, isn't it? Because you're testing it to see, and if it's giving you very generic responses, and I think Lisa was also sort of saying that if it's churning out stuff that it's like anyone, if you gave it to like anyone, right, they could create this content. But the way you show up and your brand, the brand is you, right, as in your business. And only you're going to know your brand, and you're going to know that voice, and you want the world to sort of like make sure that resonates. So as Erica was saying, you're going to check it. And if it doesn't do that, we almost like have to go back to our system and then and sort of like say, exclusively use the knowledge base. Like you can use language like, do not look anywhere else, do not scrape the internet until I ask you to, until the user says it's okay, right? So it will actually stop generating content at that point, because it won't fill the gaps in, because it will know that it's like it's not behaving to the way you want it to behave. And so more we train it, the better it is. So does that make sense? And we want to speed the process, right? The whole idea is to bypass having like having someone else, like having to kind of train every time you go and say get someone on Fiverr. I'm not saying we're going to be using people, right, to support us, but if you're a business starting out, or you're kind of wanting to be in this platform, there's more push now to get more content out, especially on social media. We want to kind of get our presence out, and the way we can do that is we're gonna make sure that whatever we're putting out aligns with our brand, because we're going to sound like everybody else. So more we can kind of refine that, and once we have it, it just means that we can create content, and then it frees us up to the stuff that we're kind of like wanting to do for our businesses, right? Be there if you're customer facing. That's kind of like
okay.
Yeah.
So it's just making sure that it's all set up as you would intend it to be, or as you would speak, as you would present yourself before creating the posts.
Yeah, and you can do some test runs as soon as you've done the assistant, and we're just gonna go through a couple of things you can ask when you test run the GPT to see if it does align, it does kind of like understand the instructions you've given it. It's like employing someone, you know, when they first, like, you get them in the first few days, you give them, I mean, how many times have you told someone to do something, you've or asked them, maybe asked them to do it, and then they haven't done it the way you like said you want them to do? Like humans don't really get those instructions, right? So
yeah, so it's systemizing it to how you would work and write.
yes, yeah. And one thing I love about this, it means it gets us really clear on our messaging. And it means that if we've been a little bit like, oh, I do this, I do that, it really gets us honing in. And there's power in that. I really believe that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I think Paul has asked a specific question relating to your knowledge base. A good way to test it works. Yeah. Yeah, you could ask a specific question. Yeah, absolutely. You could ask it, like, if you've inputted any research, you could ask it, say, draw on some of that research. And then you can sort of start seeing, you're kind of being the person that is the auditor of your own assistant. You're going, okay, now cite this from, you know, and you don't even need to say where, like cite where, you know, like the latest research on, right? And then if it's, you know, making it up, it's hallucinating. There's this whole thing about GPTs like making stuff up, because it will, right? So and you can instruct, you know, make sure, you know, not to hallucinate. You can even tell it that, do not hallucinate. Like seriously, it's like you can like have fun with it. And I always find that the bit where you're like, okay, refine it. But yeah, test it that way. So the point about the testing bit is, like we were just talking about here, is once you've done that and you've got your, you know, you've refined the model based on the feedback, the trends, and new project insights, you want to test it, right? So before you put anything out, you know, like an intern, right? You'd want to like have a look at it, right, before you sign it off. It's the same principle. So you evaluate the assistant to ensure it's being customized for, say, in this instance, the interior design blog, right? That's what we want its function to be. So we'd break it down, and that might look something like, prepare your prompts. So this step involves creating sample questions or topics, like Paul was saying there, that you would typically use for your blog. These could, you know, these could be something like, you know, interior design, match your style themes you've trained your model on. So you may have specific themes you've added to the prompts. So we're obviously going to be testing this, right? So you run test prompts to do this. And there are other ways of doing it where you can almost say, you could actually ask the GPT to produce some questions to test your assistant. Like you could sort of try that as well, give you some questions. And then once you have those questions, you could play around with that and then ask those questions to test it out. So why are we doing this? Because we want the output. So we want what it produces in the GPT to generate content that's going to be of quality, as we talked about, is accurate, it's relevant, and it has this SEO friendliness, right? So it meets the standards and aligns with your blog's goal. And I would say always with your brand voice, right? So, and of course you've got like, what's the purpose of this blog, right? Iterate and refine based on the test results, make necessary adjustments, improve the model's performance. This can sort of like, you can modify the data, fine tune the model. So So yeah, so stimulate real world scenarios. So you could test it out with real scenarios yourself and see if that works. And of course, once you put a blog out and you've got some, it's quality assured, you've tested it, you put it out there, then you're going to see the responses, you're going to start seeing how that's performing, right? So in terms of measurements, right? So get opinions from colleagues, friends, and further refine the model. And you've got these bias considerations. It keeps coming up because it's so important. Okay, it's inclusive and sensitive. So so this ensures the AI generated content meets the quality standards and effective is doing it effectively, and it represents your interior design. I know we've focused this on a case, but I always find if I learn from a case, I can start applying that to my own business. And so the last few days we've been kind of like looking generally, but if we look at one specific case, we can really hone in on that. So in terms of your assistant, so I know Crest and Lisa, you weren't here yesterday, but do you have like an idea of do you know what your assistant will be doing? Lisa? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, blogs, social media posts. I want to systemize the business. So I thought about using it to systemize duties and things that need to be, or jobs that need doing in the clinic and the studio, rather than me having to write it all out. So I thought about it being a bit of a personal assistant, maybe.
Okay, so these like would be system operating processes, something like that, like you've got in the clinic that you would create.
Yeah,
brilliant place to do it. ChatGPT would do a really good job of that because it'll be able to automate those tasks that normally you'd kind of think through, like some of those things for the clinic, so that it makes it easier. But like, yeah, fantastic. So your assistant would be social media posts and you're wanting to do, and you've got a blog as well, is that?
Yes, yeah. So it'd be things like that. I've used it before, the free version, for when we've done risk assessments, whether that's in the clinic or when we've done events outside the clinic, and was impressed with it. So thought that I would start using it to systemize jobs and roles of positions within the clinic as well.
Okay, yeah.
Saves me time on training new people on the reception when they come in.
Absolutely. That's the thing. You want these like seamless processes. Obviously, they're going to be things that like happen, but the easier we can make that, the like it just saves time, right? 100%. So if you were to say there's like at the end of this week, you would say if there's one assistant you had, and you can mind map these later and say, I want all these like to have, and that's great because you can start having, I call them like your agents on hand, right? So if I want a copywriter, I've got them, right? If I want someone who can do this, it's like they're there, right? So I can evoke them in one chat instead of like looking for a file or going in and knocking on someone's door. It's there. And that's what I love about it. So that's what I would kind of encourage everyone to do. But if you like to say, by the end of this week, what would that one assistant be doing for you?
The end of this week, I've got a lot of work to be doing to build it first before it does something by the end of this week.
Okay, let's say number one.
I wouldn't know where to start. I'd probably start with some social media posts, because I want to put together a 12-week marketing plan as well. So that would probably help me do that too.
Okay, yeah. All right. So having a plan and having social media posts and so forth, right? So yours could be having a brand voice if you've got something like that. And if you saw that I had the Bally's brand voice assistant, I called it a bot, but actually that was when I first started, and it's not even that descriptive. And so what it does, it understands like what I'm about, my brand, where you would have that. So if you've got that, I would like get those documents. You'll have them, right? So you can upload them into this space, and you can keep your assistant private. So you don't, when you save it, just save it as private if that's what you want to do. Otherwise, you see the ones on Explore where you've got all these other GPTs, basically assistants. They are what people have created, and so we can like, we've got access to those because they're in this space. But like for us, I mean, I kind of encourage everyone. That's, if you wanted that, that's different. But it's more to make our working, like our kind of like tasks easier. So it's very specific to you. You don't like want to share that. Like, that's really.
Bally, what would you include? Because I want to ask you about the brand voice. What would you include, like as documents in there? Like, what would you add to it?
In the brand voice document, yeah. So I just like sort of how I write, examples of like some written work I've done. I would include, a little bit about kind of the person I'm serving, but it's really about like my values and the kind of the way I show up and work. Sort of like as a coach, there's a lot that sort of sits in that. There's the whole thing of like confidentiality, kind of agreements and all this stuff as well. My voice is very much like, I want to be personable. I want to be someone that people would, come to for coaching. But yeah, I put example text in that voice. What I'll do is what I'll do for tomorrow is I can give you kind of like a little example of what I've added in there, if that would help.
Oh, great. That would be amazing. Thank you.
Okay. So I think that sometimes seeing an example of that really kind of does help, because I'm a visual learner. I don't know, like say if you're a visual learner, you like to see these things. Otherwise you kind of get a little bit lost in this too. So Chris was saying, yes, as a digital marketing assistant for a particular client. So yours is very much like, yes, I want an assistant for a particular client. The brilliant thing about what we're doing here is you can create systems so that you've actually got a client, and say you can actually be utilizing that in your own business. In other words, that brand becomes something that, oh yeah, sure, Jamie, see you later on. Okay, ciao for now. Yeah, I know that. Yeah, bye, thank you. And so that it's almost like you're there as you're assisting them through your AI system, basically. And you'll train your system to behave in a certain way so that you can have multiple clients that you can then be monetizing, and because you will know how to use this. And so that's kind of where the magic is as well. So you can have multiple clients with all these different assistants. You can put the voice in, you can kind of get as much of the business and to understand, test it, and maybe even send them a couple of copies and see whether that aligns, just to check, because they can always check your work anyway before they would sign it off, right? So the more it saves it, the better it would be. Okay, so just we just got a couple of minutes here. So yeah, so Crest is saying that would be, yeah, definitely. I think there's so much scope in this that because at the end of the day, what do people want to say? But you've got time. If you got time, you're going to spend hours trying to work through this, but most of us haven't got that time. So if you're able to save clients time, they're going to be happy to kind of give you these the task, and then you've got these assistants, and at the end of the day, you're producing work for them, and it's yours that you've created, right? So as we come to the close of today, a quick reminder: tomorrow's chance to showcase your AI assistant that you build. There's a prize for the best one. No pressure. I know not everybody's been able to be here all week. Okay, to refine your assistant, focus on how it reflects on your style, automates tasks, and adds value to you. And when you're writing, perhaps it's a blog, whether it's creating social media content. And so you'll present it and earn recognition on that. Okay, highlight what makes your AI unique and how it meets your leadership needs. This is the moment to shine, right? And I'm excited to see how you win tomorrow. Okay, so yeah, so remember, ignite, change, realize potential, shape the future. AI is here to stay. It is just going to continue growing, and I'm really pleased. So if you got any questions, and thank you everyone. I'm excited to see how you're doing, Chris. So so tomorrow's going to be like a prize for the one. I know Jamie's gone back and he's like, oh, I've got to add all this to it. So we're going to come back to it. It's going to be something you'll refine. You'll think of something else. You're like, oh, I could add that into my knowledge base. But I can give you examples tomorrow of some knowledge base, what I've added. Any last minute questions? Anything that you know? How did you find today? Was it helpful?
It was helpful considering I've not heard Tuesdays or Wednesdays, but yes, helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, you can still kind of see how that environment, that space, right, works and sits. Yeah, thank you. You're welcome, Chris. So it's great. Yeah, good example. Thanks. So yeah, tomorrow I'll show you kind of like examples of my brand, the brand voice Erica was talking about. Erica, you may even have something like that, but let me show you tomorrow that, and then let's see the assistants that you've created. And remember, it is like we're coming to the kind of final day, but this is by no means the final thing. It just means that you've got something that you could evoke in a chat, that you're not just kind of pulling, and it's like anyone out there, and you're standing out and shining. Yeah, good examples. How would we share them? Yeah, so tomorrow when you're ready, what I'll ask you to do is share the GPT, and we'll put it in the chat, and we could do it that way. That would be, and you know, I think sometimes it gets a bit confusing if we're sharing screen, so we can do it that way. We can look at a couple of examples, and yeah, it's more a relaxed approach here. Cool, brilliant, thank you, great work by the way, everyone. You're more than welcome, and I'm excited to see how your assistants do. Thanks, I'm so pleased you can make it, Lisa.
Thank
See
you.
you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.
Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao. Bye. Bye, everyone.